express yourself. You just can't go wrong now. Express yourself. They need to know it. Express yourselves. It's never wrong if you can do it all the time. Soccer brings the world in motion, and Canada's a co host now. Soccer's got the world in motion. US and Mexico host too. Express yourself. It's one on one. Express yourself. 48 nations all. Express yourself. You can't go wrong, 'cause this might be the best World Cup ever. Soccer's got the world in motion. That I know, it has to be true. Soccer is big sport, and some stories are here for you. So we're headed towards the World Cup in the 2000s. We already talked about the World Cups from 1930 to 1998, the format changes, what happened in the tournaments, and everything else. So this was the first World Cup that had two countries host, Japan and South Korea. They both kind of figured they couldn't host on their own, so they needed each other, if you will. There are kind of bitter rivals, if you will. Anyway, so 32 teams were playing, four groups in Japan, four in Korea. Anyway, Group A was where France, the defending champions, had kind of a decent pool of Uruguay, Senegal, and Denmark. But nobody told France that because France was supposed to rock through and get to the top two at the very least. France could only muster one measly tie against Uruguay. They lost to Senegal 1-0 on the famous Papa Bouba Diop goal, which was the opening match of 2002 World Cup. And then they ended up, well, they tied Uruguay 0-0. They couldn't beat Denmark for freaking sakes. You know, Denmark still had Peter Schmeichel, but anyway. Worst part was, yeah, France with 1 point. You definitely can't qualify for the knockout stage. Senegal beating France was enough to win. Well, Denmark beat Senegal, but still, it was good enough. So Denmark and Senegal in Group A moved on. Group B saw Spain and Paraguay move on at the expense of South Africa and Slovenia. The problem for South Africa was that, you know, Paraguay beat Slovenia. They couldn't beat Spain. Well, South Africa tied Paraguay 2-2, but because Paraguay scored more goals, they beat South Africa on the tiebreak. I feel bad for South Africa. Spain was just dominant in that group. Group C, Brazil was dominant with Turkey, Costa Rica, and China in there. China, the only time they went to the World Cup. And yes, China has 0 World Cup goals in their one appearance. They got blasted 9-0 overall. They lost 2-0 to Costa Rica, 4-0 to Brazil, and 3-0 to Turkey. Turkey on goal differential beat up on Costa Rica. So Turkey got the second seed, and Brazil was number 1. Group D, the host Koreans were 2-0-1 in a group with the U.S., Portugal, and Poland. A lot of people thought that Portugal definitely would have moved on alongside maybe Korea. But somehow the Americans ruined it by beating Portugal 3-2 in Suwon in the first game for them. It was a shock that Portugal was 6th in the world and they were down 3-0 to the Americans. The U.S. tied Korea 1-1. It was kind of controversial that match because of the stuff that happened at Salt Lake City Olympics with speed skating. The Americans got beaten up by Poland, but it was not enough for Poland to move on, as the Americans, with a win, a loss, and a tie, the Lion Rich wardrobe technique, as I call it, got it second behind Korea. Group E, Germany and Ireland qualified at the expense of Cameroon and Saudi Arabia. The Arabians were crappy. They lost 8-0 to Germany. Canada may have lost all 6 of their matches in the World Cup, but it wasn't by 8 goals. Group F, England, Sweden, Argentina, and Nigeria were in kind of the group of death. England snuck in with a win and 2 ties, so did Sweden. Argentina couldn't believe it. They lost to England 1-0 on June 7th when Beckham got redemption for his petulant flick on Simeone 4 years prior by scoring the penalty that beat Argentina. And Sweden tied Argentina, which actually helped England out. Group G, Mexico and Italy qualified. It was strange to see Mexico actually tying Italy and winning the group. Italy lost to Croatia in a shocker that almost cost them the knockout stage, but they didn't. Poor Croatia and Ecuador. Group H, Japan, the host, 2 wins and a tie in the group with Belgium, Russia, and Tunisia. Belgium joined them too. In the knockout stages, the round of 16, saw Germany beat Paraguay narrowly 1-0. The Americans beat Mexico in the North American Derby 2-0. Penalties, Spain beat Ireland. South Korea beating Italy 2-1. Of course, that was controversial because of the whole thing that the host nation probably got kind of a help from FIFA when a few Italian goals were called offside and Christian Vieri was booked because of him diving, but he just fell over. They wanted South Korea to help. And the worst part but on the winning goal scorer was that he was actually cut from his Italian club Perugia. England crushed Denmark 3-0. Brazil took care of Belgium easily 2-0. Senegal beat Sweden on the golden goal, the overtime goal, if you will, 2-1. So that was big in their first World Cup. And Turkey took care of the host Japanese 1-0. I thought it was Belgium that took care of Japan. But no, it was Turkey. Frick. Quarterfinals, Germany beat the Americans 1-0. Boy, the Americans really played the Germans hard. Spain and South Korea went to penalties, which Korea won and kind of got gifted some moves by FIFA. Brazil beat England 2-1. Unfortunately for England, it was that big Ronaldinho goal in which David Seaman didn't jump at the ball and it went in the net. Turkey would beat Senegal 1-0 on a golden goal. So, Senegal, he who lives by the golden goal dies by the golden goal. Germany beat Korea in the semifinals only 1-0. Brazil did the same to Turkey 1-0. Third place Turkey with 13 seconds into the match had the first goal and beat Korea 3-2. Whereas Brazil beat Germany in the final, Ronaldo getting redemption for his epileptic fit in 1998 and ruining things for Brazil. So Brazil got the World Cup. And strange, it's the last World Cup Brazil's ever won. Then came 2006 when Deutschland got to host the World Cup and everyone's happy. This was actually the first World Cup I kind of got to watch fully because, I had CBC and I was on TSN and Sportsnet covering the cable. Like I had cable so I could watch all the games instead of select ones. In Group A, Germany, the host nation, went through easily 3-0, took care of Ecuador, Poland, and Costa Rica. Unfortunately for Poland, I thought they were going to take second place, but Ecuador beat them. It would have been funny. The funny thing is, in 2006, my brother, who has a German heritage, was dating this girl with Polish heritage, which, of course, is my future sister-in-law, Marlene. That would have been embarrassing. And the weird thing is, with Group A, is no ties. You usually see at least one tie in any group in the group stages. Group B saw my English squad go 2-0-1 and beat Sweden, Paraguay, and Trinidad in the group. Sweden took second. So England doing what they could. They beat Paraguay 1-0, Trinidad 2-0, and tied Sweden 2-2. Group C, Argentina crushed Serbia 6-0, which helped them win the group over the Dutch on goal differential. Ivory Coast, alongside Serbia, couldn't do it. Group D, Portugal went 3-3 against Mexico, Angola, and Iran. Mexico, by beating Iran, kind of got themselves the second spot to make the knockout stages. Group E, Italy put up a 2-0-1 mark. Ghana was 2-1, and the Americans and Czechs, who were kind of in the group of death, kind of choked in a sense. Well, the Americans were not really supposed to. The Czechs were top 10 in the world. So that was just shocking. Group F saw Brazil go 3-3 against Australia, Croatia, and Japan. And in a shocker, Australia got through to the next round and not Croatia. Because Croatia, was coming off their third place finish from 1998. Group G, Switzerland and France moved on. Switzerland did quite well for themselves in this group. Of course, France and Switzerland are rivals, friendly rivals. Korea can only muster 4 points, and everyone thought that it was just revenge for 2002. Togo didn't do anything. Group H, Spain went El Perfecto. Ukraine were 2-1. Tunisia and Saudi Arabia tied a goodwill tie. Round of 16, Germany beat Sweden 2-0. Argentina on the Maxi Rodriguez volley in extra time beat Mexico. Italy only beat Australia 1-0, and that was for 90th minute controversial penalty call. Ukraine beat Switzerland on penalties 3-0. Switzerland couldn't score a penalty. And the worst part was Switzerland didn't give up a goal in open play. And of course, penalties killed them. England beat Ecuador only 1-0, which kind of pissed me off. Portugal beat the Dutch 1-0 in the Battle of Nuremberg, not a World War II battle, but a soccer battle, which saw 16 yellow cards and 4 red cards be shelled out. Portugal won that game. Brazil crushed Ghana 3-0, and France beat Spain 3-1. In the quarters, Germany and Argentina went to penalties, tied 1-1. Germany, thanks to Jens Lehmann knowing what Argentina was going to do with the penalties, did his job and scored and got the win. Italy crushed Ukraine 3-0, like they were supposed to. England and Portugal faced each other in the third quarterfinal. Of course, this was the quarterfinal that saw Ricardo make 3 saves off England players in the penalty shootout, which saw Portugal move on. But worst of all was CR7 basically getting Wayne Rooney, his Manchester United teammate, sent off for petulance. Oh yeah, Rooney did step on the guy's tender fiddles and got himself a yellow card. But CR7 basically winked at him. And I basically made a foul to hate on Portuguese soccer, not Portuguese people, for as long as it takes for England to beat Portugal, to do better than Portugal in any tournament. And it didn't happen until 2018 in the World Cup. France beat Brazil 1-0 because Brazil forgot to mark Thierry Henry. The semifinals, Italy beat Germany 2-0 in extra time. Of course, you know, the rules were in extra time. You score as many goals as you can. You don't have to win by 1 in extra time. Fabio Grasso scored a key goal, and the Italian announcer going nuts. Gol di Grasso! Gol di Grasso! France beat Portugal 1-0 on a Sedan penalty. Germany beat Portugal for third. A little bit of satisfaction. And then Italy, France, we all know about the final. And strange as it sounds about the whole thing with Sedan headbutting Materazzi, the crazy thing is they were both the goal scorers. Sedan scored for France and Materazzi scored for Italy. And then in extra time, Sedan did that. Materazzi did provoke Sedan. He admitted it. And Sedan just put the headbutt. The trouble is Sedan cost France the match because they would have needed his penalty spot. And of course, Italy was dealing with their own domestic problems, the Calciopoli, the scandals about top teams bribing referees and all that. And somehow they got the World Cup. And then we come to the 2010 tournament in South Africa. They actually made a rule, FIFA, saying that whoever hosted the 2010 tournament had to be from Africa. So Egypt and Morocco had a chance to host the World Cup, but they failed. South Africa won the bid. And South Africa was hoping to make their country feel good about themselves because, after all, they hosted the 95 Rugby World Cup and it worked out. Worst of all, Nelson Mandela was there for the opening ceremony, but worst of all, his grandmother died in a car crash after the ceremony. It's true. Group A, South Africa's group, they were paired with Uruguay, Mexico, and France, and everyone thought South Africa would fall flat as a host. They did, but they actually beat France 2-1, who were supposed to be great as the defending runners-up. But France had infighting Raymond Dominic basically pissed off his black players and all that. France were disorganized. They did score a goal, unlike 2002. But yeah, Uruguay and Mexico qualified. Uruguay 2-1 with Suarez. Mexico all ones. Goal differential bit South Africa on the butt. Oh, South Africa tied Mexico 1-1. Group B, Argentina went El Perfecto in the group with Korea, Greece, and Nigeria, which actually almost mirrored 1994, because Argentina, Greece, and Nigeria, I know, were in the same group in 1994. And I don't think Korea was that fourth team. But yeah, Argentina won all their games. Korea, by winning, losing, and tying, got ahead of Greece and Nigeria for the second wildcard spot. Group C, England, I was hoping they could beat up on the Americans, Slovenia, and Algeria. 60 years from England losing 1-0 to the Americans, another shock happened. England did score first, 1-1 on a goal by, I think, Gerrard. But yeah, it was what, or Lampard. But yeah, it was 1-0 England. But then freaking Robert Green, who did the commentary on the Champions League final alongside Clyde Tilsley yesterday, that was being taped May 31st, landed a soft shot. Landon Donovan was just passing it back, and then somehow it rolled through Robert Green's legs and into the net. U.S. and England tied 1-1. England couldn't beat Algeria, which made me worried. Fortunately, though, England beat Slovenia 1-0. The Americans shocked everyone by beating Algeria 1-0 to move on themselves. So the Americans won the group on goals scored over England. Slovenia, with a win and loss and a tie, was not enough. Group D, Germany were 2-1. They actually shockingly lost to Serbia. What's even worse is Serbia didn't even make it to the knockout stages. They only won. They were 1-2. Ghana and Australia were both 1-1. By a goal differential, Ghana got ahead of Australia. Group B, the Dutch were 3-0. Japan were 2-1. They moved on. Denmark and Cameroon were screwed. And worst of all, and weird of all, no ties. Group F is one of the worst groups you can have. It was one of the biggest softballs given to a defending champion ever. And Italy had a softball. They had Paraguay, Slovakia, New Zealand. There was no freaking way Italy could miss the knockout stages, but they did. Italy could only put up 2 ties. They tied Paraguay. They tied New Zealand, which was massive shock, and they lost to Slovakia. That's a hockey nation. Paraguay and Slovakia were top 2, and they did it. New Zealand actually was ahead of Italy in points, which was funny. Group G, Brazil and Portugal, internal rivals with the Portuguese language. They both qualified. Ivory Coast got 4 points and nearly did it. North Korea somehow got into the tournament and were blasted 7-0 by Portugal. They actually scored against Brazil, which was shocking. Group H, Spain lost to Switzerland in their first match, and it felt like, well, that's it. Spain's fucked, and they're going to be ruined for being overconfident. However, they beat Honduras and Chile. They got through alongside Chile, both at 2-1. Switzerland lost to Chile, which was the death blow. They couldn't beat Honduras for the life of them. If they had beaten Honduras, I think they probably would have snuck in. But no. Anyway, the group stage, the round of 16, Uruguay beat Korea 2-1. Ghana beat the Americans in extra time 2-1. So that was good for Africa. Ghana was the only one of the 6 African nations to move to the round 16, and they did it. The Dutch beat the Slovaks 2-1. Brazil crushed Chile 3-0. Argentina beat Mexico 3-1. Germany beat England 4-1. It wasn't even close. I couldn't even watch it. And then, unfortunately, I find out Frank Lampard could have tied the game at 2, but the ball was over the line, but they didn't want VAR. And Sepp Blatter, basically in charge of FIFA, we all know he's German, and it was revenge for 1966. But 44 years after that, they could have done better. Paraguay beat Japan on penalties, and Spain beat Portugal 1-0, the internal neighbor rivals. Uruguay and Ghana in the quarterfinals. Ghana was trying to become the first African nation in the Final Four. They had a chance when Luis Suarez was sent off for handling the ball with his hand, trying to save a goal. He's not the goalie. Asamoah Gyan missed the penalty and then subsequently missed his penalty against Uruguay in the quarterfinals. And the thing, Dutch beat Brazil 2-1, a shocker, to be honest with you. Deutschland crushed Argentina 4-0, and Spain beat Paraguay only 1-0. In the semis, the Dutch beat the Uruguayans 3-2, mostly because Suarez was not available because he got red carded. Spain beat Germany 1-0 in a shocker, got to the third place. Germany narrowly beat Uruguay in Port Elizabeth, and then Spain in extra time beat the Dutch 1-0 and finally won a trophy and made sure everyone realized they were not overachievers. And then you got yourself 2014 and the World Cup in Brazil. Brazil knew they were going to host in the World Cup. They were the most successful World Cup nation. They knew it was coming to them. And of course, they had the 2016 Summer Olympics. So there was a chance to give Brazil some love and all that. Unfortunately, though, the infrastructure and the costliness of Brazil not doing as well in those 2 events put the country in massive ruin. Brazil went 2-0-1 in their group with alongside Mexico, which is time. Mexico. Croatia and Cameroon had to play for third place, but it didn't mean anything. Group B, the Dutch were 3-0 in a group with Chile, Spain, and Australia. Spain got crushed by the Dutch 5-1 in a World Cup Finals rematch. However, Spain could have easily beaten Chile up for revenge. They did beat Australia, but they lost to Chile 2-0. A shocker. Spain, again, another defending champion, were out in the group stage. 2002 was France in 2002, defending world champ, gone in the group stage. Still got to the quarterfinals in 2006. Italy, 06 champs, went down in 2010. In flames. Spain, 2010 champs, went down in flames in 2014. Colombia went El Perfecto in the group with Greece, Ivory Coast, and Japan. Greece ended up second place because they ended up tying Japan and then beat Ivory Coast. Kind of a shocker. See Greece in there. Group D, Costa Rica and Uruguay qualified in the group with Italy and England. This was kind of the group of death. Costa Rica shocked a lot of people. They beat up on Suarez and Uruguay 3-1. They beat Italy 1-0, and then they had basically pushed England to their limit. England 1 point in 3 games, terrible. And this was the first time since 1958 England didn't make it out of the group stages. And Italy fell flat too. Wow. Group E, France and Switzerland paired up with each other, moved on as well. Ecuador and Honduras did not. Group F, Argentina moved on El Perfecto 3-0. Nigeria got 4 points. Bosnia 3, Iran 1. So Nigeria snuck in. Group G was also kind of a group of death. Germany, US, Portugal, Ghana. US always tangs with Ghana, it seems. But Portugal, well, they were a good team with CR7. They fell flat 4-0 to Germany. I kind of laughed. They ended up tying the Americans 2-2. The Americans actually were down 2-1 and scored very late. Portugal beat Ghana, but it was TLTL. On goal differential, the Americans, even though they lost 1-0 to Germany, got enough momentum to take second place. In Group H, it was Belgium and Algeria. Moving on, Belgium were El Perfecto in the group of Algeria, Russia, and Korea. Knockout stages, Brazil took on Chile on penalties and beat them. Colombia beat Uruguay 2-0. Of course, everyone remembers the famous Jaime Rodriguez volley into the net, which was amazing. France beat Nigeria 2-0. Germany needed extra time to beat Algeria 2-1. The Dutch beat Mexico 2-1. Costa Rica and Greece needed penalties. It was kind of a 50-50. It was like, who's going to win this one? One of them has to win, and Costa Rica did. They beat Greece on penalties to move on to the quarterfinals, somehow. Argentina needed extra time to beat Switzerland. Belgium needed extra time to beat the Americans. Brazil then beat Colombia 2-1. Unfortunately, that was a terrible loss because Thiago Silva got red carded and was out of the semifinal, and Neymar got hurt too. Oof. Germany beat France 1-0 in a massive matchup. The Dutch and Costa Rica were 0-0 going to penalty shootouts, and the Dutch shocked everyone by changing their goalie before the penalty shootout, which was unheard of, and it worked. Argentina nearly beat Brazil 1-0, Belgium 1-0. Argentina needed penalties against the Dutch after the game was 0-0, beating the Dutch. But worst of all was the other semifinal. Of course, the title card says it all. Brazil versus Germany, this was epic. A lot of people said this should have been the final, but it wasn't. I mean, when you got 4 giants like Brazil, Germany, Holland, and Argentina, this was a World Cup semifinal thing fit for a king. Unfortunately, Brazil got crowned, if you will. The Germans won 7-1, of course. Brazil lost their captain to a red card in the previous game, and Neymar got hurt. I think if Neymar was healthy, this game would have been close. So anyway, Germany beat Brazil 7-1. I don't need to explain myself and all that. This was terrible. And The Simpsons actually predicted this. They did an episode of The Simpsons before the World Cup called "You Don't Have to Live Like a Referee," which I will probably review for the Simpsons thing. But the simple fact is that, yeah, they did it. And while Germany beating Brazil in the final is what the Simpsons said, but no, Germany beat Brazil in the semis. Brazil had nothing left. They got crushed by the Dutch 3-0 for third, and Germany beat Argentina on Mario Götze's late goal. So that's the tournament in a nutshell. So next comes 2018, Russia. Time to host the World Cup. When Russia was allowed to host the World Cup before the drug testing happened. I know there was some controversy that Russia should have lost the World Cup for 2018 because of the drug testing thing, but they weren't. It was TLTL, too little, too late. Even though that they pulled Colombia from the 1986 World Cup, hosting and giving to Mexico. Russia, of course, this was the last World Cup they could even qualify for. They were almost qualifying for the 2022 World Cup before they got banned. Russia as the host, they actually went 2-1. They did lose to Uruguay, but Russia at least won twice against Saudi Arabia and Egypt. You knew that Russia was going to get a soft group, if you will, except for Uruguay. They're never soft. Group B, Spain and Portugal tied with 5 points each. Spain won on goals scored, but that was for first place. Iran had 4 points, beat Morocco, and tied Portugal, but it was not enough for Iran to get to the knockout stage. And poor Morocco. But yeah, Spain and Portugal were the classic Group B. They had that famous 3-3 game at Sochi Stadium. Group C, France and Denmark moved on. France were 2-0-1, Denmark 1-0-2. Peru, 3 points in their first World Cup since 1978. And Australia, well, just loved it. Group D, Croatia got maximum points with the group of Argentina, Nigeria, and Iceland. Everyone was shocked that Iceland, after their Euros upset of England in 2016, got to the World Cup. They had the pedigree, but they didn't have the power. Only one measly tie, and that was to Argentina. They ended up losing to Nigeria and Croatia. I mean, you should have been in Nigeria. So Argentina were 1-1. They actually lost to Croatia 3-0, which was a massive shock, especially with Messi on that squad. Group B, Brazil and Switzerland moved on, 75 points. Serbia 3, Costa Rica 1 point. Costa Rica could not replicate the magic of 2014. Anyway, Group F, Sweden and Mexico both 2-1. So they moved on. Korea and Germany fell flat. No ties though. Every game had to be played. To a conclusion. Germany, of course, were the defending champs. They fell to the champions curse. They fell flat to Korea. And I think the Mexican government, I think Mexican fans sent lots of gifts to the Korean embassy in Mexico because Mexico got the beneficiary alongside Sweden. Group G saw Belgium get maximum points in the group with England, Tunisia, and Panama. Well, Belgium were top 5 in the world. England knew that they could beat Tunisia and Panama. No ties in this group either. England crushed Panama 6-1. Lost to Belgium. Allegedly, England and Belgium tried to lose on purpose because they knew that if you lose, you have a better chance. Group H, Colombia, Japan, Senegal, and Poland played. Colombia were 2-1. Japan and Senegal were each 1-1, and Poland was 1-2. So Poland out. So Colombia got in. Now the question was, how do you have the tie between Japan and Senegal? Well, Japan tied Senegal 2-2. Okay, well, what's the goal differential? Japan and Senegal both were 0 for goal differential. Okay, so they didn't face the game was a tie. Goals scored 4 for Japan. Senegal 4. So Japan and Senegal, for all the tie breaks, actually were tied. Points they were tied, head to head they were tied, wins they were tied, and goals scored was a tie. So by fair play points, as in discipline points, Japan beat Senegal. Japan's always disciplined as a country. And that was the craziest way to lose a World Cup group was on fair play points. Knockout stage, Uruguay beat Portugal 2-1. Suarez beat up on CR7. I was actually shocked. I wanted Portugal to win. France and Argentina had a classic 4-3 match, but it was the round of 16. If it was the quarters or semis, it would be a better game. But yeah, it was a classic one. Brazil beat Mexico 2-0. Belgium beat Japan 3-2. Japan was up 2-0, and it looked like they were going to win because of the fair play points. But then Belgium scored late and won the game. Spain and Russia went to penalties, and somehow, in some freaking way, Russia won on penalties. And then Croatia and Denmark had to go to penalties, and Croatia beat the Danes. Sweden beat Switzerland 1-0, and in penalties, England beat Colombia. You heard me right. Penalties, England winning. That does not happen. In the quarterfinals, France beat Uruguay 2-0. Belgium shocked Brazil 2-1. Well, it's a shock because you know how good Brazil is as a World Cup nation and how Belgium underachieves. Russia and Croatia had to go to penalties. Unfortunately for Russia, this time Croatia beat them on penalties, and England beat Sweden 2-0. So I was happy. Semifinals, France beat their internal rivals Belgium 1-0. England faced Croatia in the second semifinal, and I was hoping for an England win. But Croatia won in extra time. I was gutted. England lost to Belgium for third place. Well, it kind of really didn't matter. And France beat Croatia for the finals. So Mbappe made his presence known, and it worked. And the last World Cup we're going to review is, of course, the last World Cup that happened in 2022 in Qatar. Lots of people were upset that Qatar won the World Cup bid in the first place. Everyone said it was just basically about the dineros, the monies, the Benjamins. And I thought so too. It was kind of sus, that. Qatar had good stadium ideas, but unfortunately, migrant worker problems and the fact they had to move the World Cup to November and December because of the sweltering heat of Qatar made things a little sus. So the tournament started Group A. Qatar was in with Holland, Senegal, and Ecuador. Everyone thought Qatar was going to somehow sneak into second place. FIFA was going to give them a bone. Well, they got boned all right. They lost 2-0 to Ecuador, 3-1 to Senegal, and 2-0 to Holland. So Qatar were 3 and out. They scored no points, no point, as a host nation, making them the second host nation to fall short of the group stages. The other one was, of course, 2010 South Africa. But at least South Africa won a game. Qatar was out of it. The Dutch won with 7 points. The group Senegal got 6. Group B saw England and the US paired up at each other and like, not again. Break. Fortunately for me, England and the US tied 0-0. I was like, England just can't beat the States in the World Cup. England fortunately won the group with 2 wins and a tie, 7 points. The Americans won with 5 points. Iran with 3 points over Wales. It shocked me Wales couldn't beat Iran. I was sure Wales was going to beat Iran and give the US some trouble. But yeah, England and the US battled each other once again. Group C saw Saudi Arabia somehow win the game 2-1 on a goal by Salim Al Dosari. This was a massive upset, and Saudi Arabia declared a public holiday for that. The worst part about Saudi Arabia is that they couldn't beat Poland or Mexico. They beat Argentina, who eventually became the champs, but they couldn't beat Poland or Mexico. I mean, okay, maybe Mexico, but Poland? You should have beaten Poland. Poland survived over Mexico on goal differential to take that second spot. Argentina did pull through, beating Poland and Mexico. And strange as it sounded, Mexico actually did something that I didn't know about till I looked at the Google Insights after the match. Mexico, every tournament since 1978 that Mexico's qualified for, they had never failed to get out, never failed to make the knockout stage until 2022. I didn't even know that for how bad Mexico seems to be. Um, Group C, Group D, excuse me. France and Australia moved on at the expense of Tunisia and Denmark. Well, Denmark had a big moment because Christian Eriksen, who had that cardiac arrest during Euro 2021, actually managed to make it onto the pitch and play soccer again. But yeah, France did it, and so did Australia. Both were 2-1. France did beat Australia, but goal differential helped. Australia took the second place. Group E saw Nihong go 2-1 in a group with Spain, Germany, and Costa Rica. It was actually shocking. I figured Germany and Spain were going to move on because, well, it's Germany and Spain. Spain moved on, but Germany did not. Germany shockingly lost to Japan 2-1. They tied Spain 1-1. They beat Costa Rica 4-2. But goal differential said today Spain crushed Costa Rica like a paper cup 7-0. And it was weird Costa Rica beat Japan, and yet Japan still won the group. Yeah, Germany, man, I can't believe it. Group F saw Morocco, an African nation, actually topped their group, which is unusual. They were 2-0-1. Croatia scored 5 points, Belgium scored 4, and Canada scored no point. And Belgium again underachieved. They were actually ranked second headed into this tournament, but they couldn't do the job. Yeah, yeah. Morocco was shocked. I figured Croatia and Belgium were going to move on because of how good their pedigree was. Croatia were the defending runners-up, and Belgium were Belgium. Canada, unfortunately, gave up 7 goals in their 3 losses. Well, they gave up 4 to Croatia, 1 to Belgium, 2 to Morocco. But to their credit, Canada didn't falter flat like 1986. They scored twice. So at least they got a pair of goals. They actually scored more goals than Belgium. And Belgium beat Canada 1-0. Belgium couldn't score in Croatia or even Morocco. Well, Canada better do better this time. Group G, Brazil and Switzerland both were 2-1, so they qualified ahead of Cameroon and Serbia. And Group H saw Portugal win the group 2-1. Korea, Uruguay, and Ghana followed. Korea on goals scored. On goals scored, Korea got ahead of Uruguay, and the Uruguayans were mad. Ghana only got 3 points. In the knockout stages, the Dutch beat the Americans 3-1. Argentina beat Australia 2-1. Croatia won on penalties over Nihong. Brazil took on Korea easily. England beat Senegal easily. France took care of Poland a little easily. Morocco shocked Spain by winning in the penalty shootout. And Portugal crushed Switzerland like a paper cup 6-1. In the quarterfinals, Argentina and Holland went to a tight 2-2 game, but Argentina won on penalties. Croatia would beat Brazil on penalties, which was a massive shock. France and England playing each other. I kind of knew England was doomed, and they lost 2-1 late. Morocco beat Portugal 1-0. That was a massive shock. I thought Portugal for sure was going to do it. In the semifinals, Argentina beat Croatia 3-0, and France beat Morocco 2-0. Morocco, for a time, after Canada scored that own goal on them, they didn't concede against Spain, they didn't concede against Portugal. It was like shocking. For a moment, Canada was the last team Morocco gave up a goal to. Third place, Croatia beat Morocco 2-1, but Morocco has to be proud of themselves because it was the first time an African nation got to the semifinals in the first place. And Argentina took on France, that legendary 3-3 final, which is the greatest World Cup final of all time. And it's not just recency bias, it's just the fact that it was just right there for the picking. Argentina needed to beat France in the penalty shootout, which they did. And Argentina are coming into 2026 as the defending champs. So that's all. And next week, we will go through Cutter's prognostications. Am I going to make the World Cup pick again like 2022? I doubt it, but we'll see. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond.